Just a few days after a merger, post-election coalition pact was inked between Jubilee Party and Independence Party KANU, we understand, and Mani National Congress, ANC, is willing to join, as is the Wiper Party, also willing to join in this. Let's listen to that.
The ruling Jubilee Party was formed on the 8th September 2016, following the merger of 11 smaller parties in a bid to strengthen their popularity and win the 2017 general election. And slightly over 2 years before Kenyans return to the polls for a general election, the party has taken another move. That of forming a coalition with KANU Party, whose chairman is Baringo Senator Gideon Moi.
Under the Political Parties Act, there is a pre and there is a post. So when you miss one, you correct it on the other one. And we've just seek to correct it legally. There's nothing, there's no big deal. So I'm wondering why so much fuss is being raised with us triggering that confirmation of our legal to put together the merger and the coalition together.
We are part and parcel of this government. Now, KANU inaunga Uhuru Kenyatta na ile serikali ambayo itakuja, yeye mwenyewe atajua bila atapanga.
Na mimi niwahakikishie ya kwamba nyinyi kama wana KANU tukishashinda mtakuwa ndani kabisa ya serikali.
The Registrar of Political Parties, Ruto, has already confirmed that her office has received the coalition agreements and signed by the Secretary General of Jubilee Party, Raphael Tuju, and his KANU counterpart, Nick Salat.
We, as a party, were just we triggered one clause that we needed to cement our relationship with Jubilee. What's wrong with that? And those who did not partake, or those who did not accompany the president when he came to our meeting in Kasarani, please, I beg them, let them just mention where they belong. Because for me, it's about who came, who we endorsed at our NDC.
This move comes only a few hours before President Uhuru Kenyatta chairs a meeting that will only consist of Jubilee senators at State House, Nairobi. There have been reports that Jubilee leadership aligned to the pro-BBI team has been plotting to change the leadership of parliament. West Pokot Senator Samuel Pogishon, who was elected on a KANU ticket, has been touted as the person who will replace Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen as the Senate Majority Leader, while Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja is said to replace Nakuru Senator Susan Kihika as the Senate Majority Chief Whip.
In politics, it's not a rehearsal. In politics, it's realistic. You take opportunities when they arise. I'm not going to mention names, but it's just in the agreement. We only triggered an agreement which we already had.
Sources also indicate that the State House meeting will also deliberate on the controversy surrounding Nairobi County politics, given that Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko has declined to assent to a bill allocating more than 15 billion shillings to the newly established Nairobi Metropolitan Services for transferred functions, escalating the push and pull between the two entities. It is not yet clear whether Deputy President William Ruto and senators affiliated to the Deputy President will attend the State House meeting. Chris Dairo, KTN News.
So the report by Chris Dairo was earlier in the week in the run-up to what was happening inside the Jubilee Party. Of course, a lot has happened. Samuel Pogisho, Senator for West Pokot, replacing Kipchumba Murkomen as the Senate Majority Leader. Irungu Kangata Muranga, Senator, replacing Susan Kihika as a Majority Whip in the Senate. Now, let me come to you, Mark Bichachi. What we are seeing here, let's talk about this super alliance. It is an assembling of political parties, really, to help the ruling Jubilee Party, conduct its business in both houses of parliament. Now, we are seeing political parties, stumbling over to try and join the queue. Is this really healthy for a democracy? Who is the majority, who is the minority in this setup that is likely to be Kenyans are likely to be seeing in the next few days or weeks?
First, let us understand that post-election coalitions are a norm in many, many democracies. Germany is a good example. In the last election of Angela Merkel, she had to do a post-election coalition with a few parties in order for her to have enough numbers to rule. Now, the question that Kenyans should really ask themselves, beyond the emotions of or is who is being betrayed, is the question of what needs to get done. Uhuru Kenyatta is president, and he needed the ground troops necessary in parliament and senate to be able to deliver. In any circumstance where you find yourself as a president in a democracy such as ours, and you do not have the numbers necessary to push your agenda, then you will look for alternative ways to do so. Now, given the fact that Murkomen and Sudi and a lot of the people on the Tanga side of government had willfully decided that they will fight the fight against corruption, they will continue to say that the BBI is a hoax, yet it is something that their party leader has created as an agenda, then it was definite and certain that the president will take this move. So is this good for democracy? Yes, it is, because democracy is about the conversation between majorities and minorities and the formation of joint ideas to deliver for the people. If this was not about the Big Four, if this was not about the BBI, if this was not about the fight against corruption and coalescing people towards achieving that, then I'd have a problem with it. But there's nothing absolutely wrong with a president who is sitting to come up with a coalition to deliver for his people. The idea that then William Ruto is being betrayed because the president wants to deliver is quite laughable, and it is looking at the whole thing from a very emotional point of view, instead of looking at it in terms of what needs to get done, because there's no other way you can expect President Uhuru Kenyatta to deliver when he lacks the foot soldiers who will do and carry out his orders.
All right, Kipchumba, is it a good idea to have this super alliance? Is it good for the Jubilee administration to deliver on its mandates?
I think to answer Mark, the comments Mark is making, some of them belong to political entertainment. When we talk about, Ben, what we need to discuss, what is of priority to this nation at the moment? At the moment, our priority is economic recovery. Post-COVID economic recovery. We are not in a hurry, or we are not in a crisis that needs a political answer. Look at it this way. When did Uhuru Kenyatta lose bills in parliament that he needs to bring parties together to do something? He did not lose in the tax bill when they were raising the petroleum fuel taxes. He has not lost on the security bills and all those other bills. So my question is this: is it a priority in the moment to bring coalitions together? No. Will they have an impact as we go to 2022? No. For the simple reason that on the run-up to the 2013 election, we had a coalition around Kalonzo, William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta, Eugene Wamalwa, and some fellas. It was known as the G7 Alliance. That alliance fell before 3 months into it, or it was a month into it. So the bigger the political coalition, the bigger the fall. The fallout that will come out of this grand super alliance or something will be bigger than the fallout that came after NDP went to Kanu. And the reason is this, Ben. The people who are going into that coalition, they are heading there knowing that Uhuru will endorse me for president. Look at Raila Odinga.
When you say that, this alliance will include Jubilee. It will include William Samoei Ruto, won't it?
It will include them, but Ben, at the end of the day, when ODM, Wiper, and all these people are going to the alliance, all of them are going there with a hyena mentality. The hand will fall on me, and I'm the one who will devour the hand. But when we come back to the containing debate as to whether this is good for democracy or not, absolutely, the answer is no, it is not, because a democracy and our model expects that there will be a government which will be the majority, and there will be a minority side, and these two will complement each other and provide solutions so that a country can run. The other question is this: why the urgency, how big was William Ruto? The reasoning outside there has been, we are bringing Raila, Kalonzo and everybody to fill the vacuum that has been left by William Ruto. My question is this, how big was William Ruto that the void is leaving will be filled by 5 politicians? The other question also, my last thinking is this, from here henceforth, there will be no development. What we are going to do is the 2022 machinations. Tomorrow when the curfew is opened and we are back to normalcy, nobody will go back to thinking that we need to revive the economy. The referendum and the politics around the referendum are starting to show its head from the horizon. So it means that this super alliance, 1 is for the referendum, 2 is for fixing of the 2022 presidential election, and the third reason is to make sure that William Ruto is vanquished. And my question is this, if we are to unite the nation, does the president need to bring political parties together or to bring the people together? He has shook hands with Raila Odinga. We are told he has half the country. Do we really need now to bring coalitions together? And then to political scientists outside there and the legal scholars. We cannot have one party in 2 coalitions. Does it mean that the NASA coalition will have to be dissipated before we enter into another coalition?
Okay.
Those are the questions. And then the other thing, Ben, my final comment will be this. What happens to the leadership in parliament? Will it mean Akina Mbadi and team will have to take back their positions because you cannot have been co-opted into government and retain those positions as minority leaders? And the question is this again, even as we tremble on the constitutional order, independent politicians, independent members of parliament and senators cannot enter into a coalition pact with any political party. I saw the majority whip Irungu Kangata saying that the senator from Muranga or Kirinyaga has entered into a coalition with Jubilee. It cannot happen.
Right.
The moment he does that, he should lose his seat and go back to the people of Kirinyaga and seek fresh mandate under the party of his choice.
Okay. Dismas, Kipchumba here raises a very interesting point of view. I want us to talk about that. Political parties are tripping over themselves trying to join the super alliance. This includes Amani National Congress, Musalia Mudavadi, who at some point people had seen as the de facto opposition, quote-unquote, leader, you know, when the handshake happened. Now, a lot of people are comparing this as an incumbent deputy vice president against a sitting president who is trying to, you know, overlook the deputy to try and appoint another successor. Now, this has failed before. In 2012, we did see Mudavadi being seen as the State House, Kibaki's, you know, successor or projects, and he did fail at the hurdle. In 2002, the late President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi overlooked a lot of political luminaries, including Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, and Musalia Mudavadi was then vice president, and picked on Uhuru Kenyatta, who failed again to Mwai Kibaki. Are you seeing the same happening this time round, or do you think that this super alliance is about something totally different?
Well, in my view, this super alliance has got nothing to do with 2022. The super alliance has got everything to do between now and 2022, the interim period before we go to those elections. And the reasons are very clear, that there is no way President Kenyatta will be able to deliver on his mandate, either at the National Assembly or the Senate, if his deputy proactively insubordinates him. When you're the leadership of Jubilee, and Jubilee is a special purpose vehicle made up of 2 powerful personalities, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and William Samoei Ruto. If the 2 of them are not reading from the same script, then it's incumbent on the party leader, President Kenyatta, to look for support from elsewhere. So what essentially he's doing is getting numbers from...
You're saying that this coalition is about inviting the minority parties to support one half of the majority party.
Yes, absolutely. That's the case. That's why, for instance, at the National Assembly, Jubilee in government, is speaking with other political parties so that they can have numbers to drive the agenda. I don't know, at this stage, when you look at President Kenyatta, his hands have been tied for a long time. When you have people as majority leaders of the 2 houses and they're not dancing to your tune, what are you expected to do? You cannot just sit back and say, let the plane flow, on autopilot, and then before you know, you get into turbulence. It's incumbent on the president, because the buck stops on him, to ensure that he's got numbers at the National Assembly and at the Senate to drive his agenda. But the big question, therefore, is whose interest is the president serving? Is he serving our national and public interest, or is he serving selfish interest? And we are told that these numbers he's getting are going to secure his legacy. It's therefore incumbent on all of us to say and look at the president carefully and find out the pieces of legislation he wants to introduce with the numbers he's getting both at the Senate and National Assembly. Are they serving Mora's interest, or they are serving the two powerful families? They are serving the handshake. And you mentioned about Musalia Mudavadi, but I've not heard you mention that he is proactively considering joining the Super Alliance or the government of national unity. But even if he decides to join, or maybe he gives it a wide berth, we must ask ourselves, all these leaders we keep on electing day in, day out, whose interests are they serving? Is their selfish interest consistent with our national and public interest? If we don't do that, then we'll be getting into trouble every day.
Okay.
Because, Kenya, there's no shortage of very solid leaders, but for some reason, when we go to the elections, we become very emotional, and we abandon our rational thinking, and then we select people. Eventually, when they go to the House, they forget that their leadership, their manifestos are anchored on our national and public interest. For me, I think that's the bottom line. And when you go to the vote, why do we abandon reasoning? Why do we become very emotional? Why are we held captive by our tribal leaders masquerading as party leaders? Why can't we vote with our selfish interest in mind? And then Kipchumba Karora has raised a very pertinent issue. In the event that ODM decides to abandon NASA, what happens to James Orengo? What happens to Mbadi? Are they willing to relinquish those powerful positions in the two houses? Or are they going to behave like hyenas? They want to be in the executive, and they also want to control the National Assembly and Senate.
Okay. Chero, there are several motives that have been touted here. From where you sit, what do you think is the end game in this mooted super alliance?
Ben, for those of us who are old enough to remember, we've watched this movie before. We know the script. We know how it ends. 25 years we've been doing this. We are looking for another 25 years of super alliances. We must understand that it's going to end badly for Kenyans. And I'm so happy when I hear my brothers reference the interests of people, reference the needs of Wakenya. Let me tell you, the Big Four agenda is dead. We have entered the lame duck presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta. Every single thing right now is geared towards succession and is geared towards 2022. And this is why BBI is so crucial. We remember the famous meeting where the late Kamodo was where the late Kamodo was spectacularly removed as Secretary General. We remember how that went. We remember how it ended. And eventually, Raila decamped to join Wamalwa, Ngilu, Kibaki, and the famous Kibaki Tosha. So ultimately for me, I'm looking at this and saying, as Kenyans, we are allowing ourselves to fall back into the same Afro cinema where ultimately our food will not be taken care of. Our kerosene costs, as you've seen today, have gone up. Our fuel costs are not going down commensurate. Jobs are not there for young people. Health is not there. This is why even in the middle of the COVID crisis, we are seeing the complete breakdown of our public health system. Maybe it wasn't even there to begin with. The clinical side of things. So ultimately, for me, as a Kenyan, these games, these super alliances can continue till kingdom come. But until the people of Kenya themselves decide enough is enough, super alliances notwithstanding, we're going to vote in a manner that actually meets our interests. That is when we shall see a change. Otherwise, the games will continue. This has nothing to do, except for Uhuru Kenyatta admitting that he doesn't have the numbers in parliament anymore, which was always the argument. Otherwise, this is nothing new for us as Kenyans.
Hezbollah Willa, so much has been said, so many views on what's happening with this proposed super political alliance. What is your school of thoughts?
Well, I think, Ben, from where I sit, there is no conflict of interest as far as what the executive is doing in Parliament. What happens is, President Uhuru Kenyatta has shared his vision with political party leaders, including Raila Odinga and other political players. And it is clear that after the 10-year period between 2013 and 2022, we will only remember what the president has delivered, not who he shall have handed over power to. And I think if like-minded politicians join forces because they've seen the vision that the president has for the remainder of his term, and they support his agenda, we should actually try and interrogate that from a very political point of view. That to what extent is this delivering on the interest of Kenyans? So much so that if he's building alliances within Parliament, we need to ask ourselves, to what extent is Parliament maintaining that fidelity as an institution that oversees the central government? And if Parliament is doing that and providing a framework, I don't think there is any problem if MPs from different political parties, senators from different political formations, come together to support or provide a framework for what the president has articulated to their political party leaders as something that will make a difference in the lives of Kenyans. And if you want to look at it, I mean, if the president delivers and he's supported by his deputy president and the MPs who went around the country campaigning for the Uhuru presidency, I think the person who is likely to benefit if he subscribes to the vision of the president is the deputy president, because then he'll be part and parcel of that delivery. Now, there is a perception outside there that his lieutenants have been frustrating the president. And what we need to look at is, now that his lieutenants are out of the key positions in Parliament and are likely going to be out of the key positions in the National Assembly, in Senate and the National Assembly, to what extent will this new formation articulate the interest of Kenyans? And I think there are more questions to ask. And the critical question we should be asking is, are these MPs serving the interest of their political parties? Are they serving the interest of the political kingpins who are almost always tribal? Are they serving the interest of Kenyans? Now, if they serve the interest of Kenya, the onus is on President Uhuru Kenyatta to ensure that whatever they serve is the interest of Kenya. Then I would say President Uhuru Kenyatta can sweep whatever house he wants to sweep, so long as he brings together a team that will help him serve the interest of Kenya, which he has clearly articulated in his agenda to fight corruption, deliver the Big Four, and unite Kenya.
Thank you for that. It is a political development we are continuing to keep an eye on here. We shall be bringing you the very latest and most qualified analysis of this. Let's take a quick commercial break here on Inside Politics, once more on KTN News. When we come back, we will take a look at the latest measures by the government in the fight against COVID-19 global pandemic. President Kenyatta extending the nationwide curfew and cessation of movement for another 21 days up to the 6th of June. Still ahead, Rwanda's most wanted man who has been on the run for more than 25 years. Key suspect in the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis, Felicien Kabuga, arrested in France. Stay with us.